In just 11 minutes, a delivery boy crippled a multi-million-dollar crypto exchange. October 14, 2022, 1:46 a.m., Riverside County, California. A small apartment sits in near total darkness. Only a dim blue glow leaks from an aging laptop, its screen reflected on the smooth, faceless surface of a metallic figure sitting motionless in front of it. The room is silent, except for the steady tick-tock of a cheap wall clock, 12 ticks per second, a reminder of how quickly time can turn against you. On the laptop, the admin panel of Nexus Vault Exchange flickers violently. Red warning banners pulse across the dashboard. Balance sheets distort. Withdrawal queues shift direction. The interface looks less like a secure financial system and more like a heartbeat in cardiac arrest. And then the number appears. $3.2 million. Not vanished, not stolen, just redirected. Pushed off its intended path the way a small stone can divert the flow of a river. The shock isn't only in the amount, it's in the identity of the intruder. He isn't a veteran hacker, not a cybercrime syndicate, not an insider with privileged keys, just an 18-year-old delivery boy, working nights, borrowing Wi-Fi from a neighbor, and typing on a laptop that should have died years ago. On paper, Nexus Vault was untouchable. Layers of authentication, encrypted infrastructure, marketing that bragged about military-grade security, internal controls strict enough to make even seasoned auditors wince. And yet, this system, built by experts and protected by millions, collapsed under the weight of a teenager who shouldn't have been able to see past its login screen. A reminder of a cold truth in cybersecurity. Strength isn't measured by the complexity of the fortress, but by the smallest crack no one noticed. And on that night, someone did notice. But what happened next changed everything. Evan Ortiz was 18, Latino, born to a family that crossed a border looking for something better and found only the edge of survival. He lived in a one-room apartment on the east side of Riverside County. Peeling paint, a sagging mattress, a second-hand fan that clicked every 4 seconds. Nothing in the room was new, not even the hope. By day, Evan delivered food across the city, 40 to 50 stops on a typical Saturday. He earned just enough to keep the lights on and to pretend that there was a future worth working toward. But at night, long after the streets emptied out, he faced a different world. A borrowed laptop, a cracked screen, hours spent on coding tutorials, cybersecurity forums, and YouTube channels run by people who would never know his name. It wasn't ambition, it was survival. A quiet attempt to climb out of a life that felt permanently below the surface. Evan grew up in the kind of poverty that leaves fingerprints on a person's personality. He learned to stay quiet, to observe, to listen more than he spoke. His mind recorded details the way a camera records light. A license plate seen for 1 second. A password pattern someone typed too slowly. A reflection on a glass door at 9:12 p.m. People overlooked him. And with each dismissal, each moment of being ignored, he began to believe a dangerous idea, that being invisible gave him power. But invisibility has a price. His mother's illness deepened over the years, unpaid medical bills piling up month after month. His father disappeared one winter morning in 2017 and never came back. Opportunities passed Evan the way buses did. They arrived, paused, and moved on without him. Scholarships, not with grades dragged down by 12-hour work shifts. Internships, not without connections. A future in tech, not without someone willing to open a door. And then came the breaking point. Evan saved for almost a year. Tips stuffed into a shoebox, rides done in the rain, skipped meals. It totaled barely over $1,000, but to him, it was everything. Money meant to cover rent, and maybe help his mother breathe for another month. He put it all into Nexus Vault, the crypto exchange that promised fast returns and military-grade protection. 2 weeks later, on September 3rd, 2022, at exactly 7:58 p.m., the app displayed a simple message: system maintenance in progress. When service returned, his balance was zero. Customer support offered nothing, no explanation, no accountability, just silence. And that silence Cold, corporate, and dismissive cut deeper than the loss of money. When you push someone to the edges of society, you don't get compliance, you get calculation. In Evan, frustration hardened into focus. Powerlessness turned into a plan, and anger, quiet, patient, corrosive, found a target. If they can take everything from me, he thought, why can't I take something back? That night, Evan began to change. Nexus Vault presented itself as untouchable, a mid-sized crypto exchange with a loud promise, absolute security. Its ads ran late at night on West Coast channels in 2021, polished, confident, almost militant in tone. To most users, it looked like a fortress built on lines of code. Inside its Riverside satellite office, the image seemed to match the claim. Multiple badge checkpoints, security doors that clicked shut with a sterile metallic snap, cameras covering every corridor, a server room chilled to 48 degrees Fahrenheit to protect the hardware, every log, every access, every keystroke, supposedly monitored. But systems rarely fail at the strongest point. They fail at the weakest human habit. Behind the polished exterior, Nexus Vault relied heavily on outsourced contractors, temporary IT staff, rotating support teams, workers paid by the hour, moving fast, cutting corners to keep up with deadlines they didn't control. In that environment, precision becomes optional. Test machines sat beside production machines, both humming at the same volume. Temporary credentials were left active for weeks past their expiration dates. Sticky notes clung to monitors with half-erased usernames. Sessions stayed open during coffee breaks. A culture built on urgency, but not discipline. For a trained attacker, those flaws would be obvious. But Evan wasn't trained. He was observant, and sometimes observation is even more dangerous. On the night of September 26, 2022, at exactly 8:17 p.m., Evan walked into the building during a delivery run, an order of burritos and iced tea for the IT night shift. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, washing the office in a cold, clinical gray. He waited by the reception desk for a signature, and that was when he saw it. A workstation left unlocked, a login screen already filled, a username he recognized from the company's support emails, NV Test Admin. Below it, a password hint glowing faintly in the corner, pet name 2021. It lasted no more than 3 seconds, but his memory didn't need 4. As the delivery receipt printed, 2 contractors walked past him, complaining in hushed voices. Something about an API glitch. Something about fix it tomorrow. Another corner cut, another delay. Another sign that the real threat wasn't outside the building, but inside the culture that ran it. Security is never absolute. Not when convenience becomes routine. Not when humans get comfortable. A strong system doesn't fear attackers. A careless system fears anyone who pays attention. And on that night, a delivery boy paid attention. But every fortress has a crack. Preparation began 3 weeks before the breach. 21 days, 504 hours. And Evan faced all of them alone. No partner, no mentor, no guidance. Just his memory, sharp, restless, and carrying more weight than any teenager should. He started with what he knew best, the delivery routes. Every night, between 6 p.m. and 1 a.m., he mapped the patterns inside Nexus Vault's office without ever stepping beyond the lobby. Employees leaving early on Thursdays, late-night developers working past midnight on Mondays, contractors arriving at oddly consistent times, 8:13 p.m., 9:47 p.m., 11:06 p.m., like clockwork. Patterns revealed vulnerability, and vulnerability revealed opportunity. At home, his room became a command post held together by desperation. A 7-year-old laptop wheezed on the desk, its fan rattling every time he opened more than 2 browser tabs. A USB stick, cheap plastic, scratched along the edges, sat beside it. The only new thing in the apartment was the wall, covered in notes, sticky papers, scribbles, timelines, observations taken after each delivery shift. Evan didn't study like a hacker. He studied like a witness. He timed how long certain pages took to load. 1.8 seconds, 3.4 seconds, 5.1 seconds during peak hours. Not the technical cause, just the rhythm. A system's heartbeat, measured through lag. He read complaints on crypto forums late at night, posts from users claiming their withdrawals froze, reversed, or vanished. Buried inside the noise were clues about stress points in Nexus Vault's infrastructure. Real data mixed with rumor. He treated both the same. Information to be observed, never trusted. Then came the tests. Quiet, cautious, never enough to trigger alarms, at least not intentionally. 2 attempts to log into the test environment using the credentials he had glimpsed, both rejected. He didn't panic. He simply logged the timing, the error wording, the reaction of the page. On another night, the session abruptly closed mid-request. The screen froze for 6 full seconds. He learned more from that failure than from any success. And once, just once, his connection stalled long enough to make him think his IP address might be blocked. His hands shook as he waited for the page to reload. When it finally did, he exhaled like someone who had just stepped back from the edge of a moving train. Sleep disappeared from his life. The lights in his apartment stayed on until 4 or 5 a.m. His handwriting grew messier. His notes filled faster. His right hand trembled slightly whenever he wrote too long. Fatigue mixed with fear, and fear mixed with a strange determination he didn't fully understand. Evan wasn't chasing money at that point. He was chasing control. For the first time in his life, he felt the possibility of tipping the balance, of pushing back against a world that had always leaned on him. Inside that dim room, under the cold blue light of a failing laptop, he crossed a line he couldn't see and didn't question. And on the 21st night, after 3 weeks of watching, timing, recording, and stitching together the cracks in a system built by people who never noticed him. And now, everything was ready. The execution began at 1:46 a.m., a quiet hour, a fragile hour, the kind of hour when most systems and most people let their guard down. 0 o'clock, Evan accessed the test panel. The room around him stayed still, washed in the dim glow of a failing LCD screen. The cursor blinked once, then again. 12 frames per second. A small detail, but enough to show how old his device really was. 040. The credentials, those fragments he memorized in a passing glance 2 weeks earlier, were accepted. No celebration on his face, no thrill. Only a cold quiet, as if he had expected this moment to unfold exactly this way. 1:10. He checked the mirrored data between the test environment and the live system, not by digging deep, not by forcing anything, just observing the response like someone reading subtle changes in temperature. A system breathing, a system unaware. Time moved. 2:30. He attempted a small action, a transfer of $25 to a secondary wallet, an amount insignificant to a multi-million-dollar exchange. It processed, no alert, no resistance, like a door left slightly open. 4 o'clock. He added another small cluster of actions, tiny signals sent into a vast digital ocean. Nothing illegal in isolation, nothing that revealed intent. But together, they mapped something far more important, how the system reacted under strain. 6:10, then came the noise. A series of harmless requests, low impact, low visibility, just enough to fog the glass, but not enough to break it. A common tactic in digital forensics, not as an attack, but as a way to study how a system filters chaos. Throughout it all, the scene remained clinical, almost sterile. No frantic typing, no cinematic speed, just a teenager making calculations in silence, the way a chess player studies patterns rather than pieces. And as the seconds passed, the pressure built. Ping times climbed from 110 milliseconds to 140, then 186. The interface flickered. A slight stutter in the refresh rate. The soundtrack of tension, a deep, cold hum underlining every move. The timeline fractured, intentionally, cinematically, revealing the pieces that drove him here. A brief flash of Evan sitting alone 3 weeks earlier, walls covered in handwritten notes. Another flash of his mother lying in a hospital bed on August 29th, 2022, the beeping monitor echoing faintly. Another of the night, he delivered food to Nexus Vault for the very first time, the moment he saw the open workstation, the open door. Then the scene snapped back to the present, 8:50, the final action. A larger movement, one that the system should have rejected instantly. But latency buys moments, and moments shape consequences. 10:30. A warning appeared on the screen, a bright red banner, one sentence that suggested someone, somewhere, had finally noticed an anomaly. The system exhaled hard. 10:59. Evans severed his connection. A clean cut, a quiet exit. A single keystroke ending 11 minutes that would echo far beyond his small apartment. He didn't smile, he didn't celebrate, he didn't look victorious. What he looked like was someone who had crossed a threshold without fully understanding where it led. And then, the unexpected happened. For 11 minutes, the system slept, and then, at 1:57 a.m., it stirred. Inside Nexus Vault's Riverside office, a lone night shift technician sat beneath fluorescent lights that hummed at a steady 50 decibels. He was reviewing routine logs, expecting the same patterns he had seen every night for the past 6 months. But on that screen, a single line looked wrong, a request that shouldn't exist, a timing that didn't match any scheduled job, a deviation, small but undeniable. He frowned, leaned closer, and, out of habit more than suspicion, sent a quick test transaction through the system at 1 hour, 57 minutes, and 12 seconds a.m. It was meant to confirm normal behavior. Instead, it exposed the break in the rhythm. The system's response time doubled. A mirrored ledger flickered. Several internal counters misaligned by fractions of a second, barely visible to a human eye, but loud to an automated security module. The software reacted instantly. A deep scan activated. Logs expanded from basic entries to full diagnostic mode, timestamped to the millisecond. The system began recording everything. In that moment, Evans' actions were seconds away from being traced. 20, maybe 30. Not enough time to think, only enough time to react. A connection inside the exchange's internal network dropped at 1 hour, 57 minutes, and 26 seconds a.m. A standard safety response when anomalies appear. To a viewer, it's a small detail. To someone connected remotely, it's the sound of a trap snapping shut. In his dim apartment, Evans saw the shift, a change in how the interface refreshed, a pattern he recognized instantly, not as a warning from the system, but as a consequence of human attention on the other side. His pulse didn't spike, his breathing didn't change, he simply moved. He closed his session before the deeper logs could attach a signature to it. Not a skilled maneuver, just an instinctive survival reaction, the kind any teenager might have when caught somewhere they shouldn't be. Then he cut his temporary connection, redirected what remained of the misrouted funds into a holding wallet. A safe place? Not exactly, just a place outside immediate reach. He powered down the laptop, unplugged the charger, removed the cheap phone cable from the wall. The room fell into silence. Only the wall clock kept ticking, slow, steady, indifferent. From a psychological standpoint, it was the purest form of flight behavior. Not strategy, not mastery, just reflex under pressure, shaped by weeks of fear and an entire lifetime of disadvantage. And despite how close the system came to identifying him, despite how narrow the gap was between escape and exposure, somehow he survived the moment. Chaos spread faster than the breach itself. At 2:03 a.m., October 14, 2022, Nexus Vault shut down all withdrawals across its platform. Every currency, every region, a full stop. The company called it a temporary protective measure, but users sensed something far worse. Within minutes, Twitter filled with panic. Hundreds of posts from traders in Los Angeles, Seattle, Phoenix. People refreshing their apps every few seconds. Balances stuck, transfers frozen, fear rising. By sunrise, several West Coast tech blogs had already given the event a name, the 11-minute freeze, a title that captured both the speed and the devastation. The financial damage became clear later that afternoon. A loss of $3.20
What's the
million.
status now?
Money that had shifted in silence between 1:46 a.m.
We're still
and
trying to identify the
1:57 a.m.
root cause.
Engineers were able to reverse a portion of it through emergency rollback procedures, pulling back fractured transactions before they fully settled. But not all of it. A large segment remained locked inside a temporary wallet, untouched, unmoved, unclaimed, a digital limbo, and the silence around that wallet only deepened the mystery. While Nexus Vault scrambled to contain the fallout, Evan moved in the opposite direction, quiet, deliberate, disappearing piece by piece. He powered off his phone, removed the SIM card, snapped it once between his fingers, an instinctive reaction, not a strategic one. His social accounts vanished within minutes, profiles wiped clean, old messages deleted. At 2:41 a.m., security footage from his apartment complex captured a final image, a hooded figure walking down a dim hallway, carrying nothing but a small backpack. The timestamp blinked twice, then the frame cut out. No one saw him return. In the digital world, the trail ended even faster. No new logins, no search history, no device pings, just absence, cold, immediate, complete. Psychologically, it was a classic disappearance response. Not confidence, but fear. A teenager overwhelmed by the scale of what had just happened, retreating into the only safety he knew, erasing himself. But the ripple effects were only beginning. But the story wasn't over. In the days that followed, the digital trail froze, just like the system he had shaken. The temporary wallet that held a portion of the diverted funds remained untouched. No withdrawals, no transfers. Not even a heartbeat on the blockchain. A silence that puzzled investigators and unsettled everyone else. Then came the strangest detail. A camera inside Evan's apartment complex captured his silhouette at 2:41 a.m., October 14th, 2022. 3 seconds later, the recording corrupted. Only those 3 seconds. The precise moment when his figure should have turned toward the exit. Every other clip that night remained intact. Nexus Vault refused to comment publicly. No statements, no press conferences. Only a brief note to regulators acknowledging an internal anomaly under review. A phrase that raised more questions than answers. And so the theories began. Was it an inside job? A disgruntled employee using Evan as a shield? Or did someone guide him without his knowledge? Or was it something far simpler? Timing, luck, and a vulnerable system crossed by the wrong person at the right moment? In psychology, absence can be as revealing as presence. And Evan's disappearance posed a new question. If he erased himself from the digital world, did he still exist in the real one? Or maybe the truth disappeared with him.